Welcome to Lesson 7 in Unit 24, Particle Picnic. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how do ingredients change when we prepare a meal? In this lesson, students apply their learning of matter, solutions, and mixtures, and physical and chemical changes to plan a picnic that meets specific criteria for success and constraints on materials, time, and cost. Students figure out that ingredients change as a meal is prepared. Making any meal involves chemistry. Students make connections to the storyline by applying learning from throughout the unit to explain how chemistry is involved in planning a community picnic. There are several opportunities for ELA, math, and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 24 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 days to complete. To begin the engage portion, you'll revisit the cake baking and lemonade making processes and remind students of how matter changed in both making the cake and the lemonade. You'll ask where else we see matter changing in our everyday lives. You'll then introduce the book Everyday Chemistry. Be sure to use the Read Aloud guide to make connections between the book and the particle picnic. You'll then ask students what they still need to do in order to be ready for the community picnic. You'll revisit the driving question board and add any new questions and highlight others connected to the learning goals of this lesson by calling attention to questions about how matter can be changed to make a meal or planning their picnic. You'll ask students about their favorite foods and have them work independently using the Favorite Food Brainstorm student journal page to write down their favorite food and at least one physical or chemical change that is needed to make that type of food. For the Explore portion, you'll put students into groups to plan a food to bring to the particle picnic. They will be in these groups for the rest of the unit. You'll review the criteria and constraints for the picnic. You'll have students work in their groups using the Particle Picnic student journal page to define the problem they are trying to solve and discuss the criteria and constraints of a successful solution. You'll guide students to the Picnic Food Plan rubric student journal page and go over it with students so that they understand the goals of the project. You'll then play a cooking video and prompt students to use the Preparing Your Food Notes student journal page for jotting notes as they watch. After watching, you'll have teams discuss. You'll then have students work in their picnic groups using the Preparing Your Food Notes and Matter at the Particle Picnic student journal page to plan their picnic food. With their groups, you'll have students choose a recipe provided in the Particle Picnic recipe guide. For the Explain portion, you'll scramble student groups so teams can share their ideas. You'll have students share their work and evaluate it based on the Picnic Food Plan rubric student journal page. Students should give each other feedback and revise their work based on peer feedback. While students share, you'll have them use the 3rd through 5th grade MySci peer feedback table tent to help guide their discussions. For the Elaborate portion, students will use their revised picnic meal plans on the Matter at the Particle Picnic student journal page to work in their teams to design an advertisement for their food and recipe. They can choose to make the advertisement on a poster board or digitally. For the Evaluate portion, students will select a dish or two that are easy to prepare in class. You'll hold a community picnic with dishes students planned. You'll have students take turns presenting their advertisements and explaining how their picnic plan meets the criteria and constraints. You'll use the assessment tracker and the Unit 24 Summative Performance rubric to evaluate students on their picnic plans. This summative assessment and rubric covers standards and elements from across the unit, not just this lesson. You'll then invite students to review what they've learned about matter, conservation of matter, and how matter changes. The goal of this class discussion is for teams to revisit the learning throughout the unit and to wrap up the unit. You can use your summary charts from throughout the unit to help guide this discussion. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient students back to the driving question board. You'll ask students, did we answer any of the questions on our driving question board? Are there any questions we haven't answered? Try to wrap up any final questions on the driving question board before the end of the unit. By the end of this lesson, students will have applied learning from the unit to plan a picnic that meets specific criteria for success and constraints on materials, time, and cost. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.